first graders, it's Mrs. Ingalls. I'm back with another writing lesson for you. I hope you remember we started a new routine where we practice writing a complete sentence before we engage in today's task. So we are going to do that next day of our sentence of the day routine. Okay, friends, so here are the words that we're going to use in our sentence again today. We have the word I went to the barn, park, garden, pen. I want you to listen as I read to you the next part of the story. I laid down in the hay next to a white woolly sheep and her little lamb. A gentle horse named Sadie nuzzled my hand with her nose. What do you want, Sadie? I asked. The sheep went, bah. Mr. Collins, the farmhand, smiled. They're looking for a treat, he said. A nice crunchy carrot or a hunk of crispy lettuce would be perfect. I thought for a minute. Where can I get a treat for them? I asked. Mr. Collins pointed out the door. You can pick some right over there, he answered. Where did I go to pick the vegetables? I'm thinking they went to the garden. I'm thinking they went to the garden. What do you think? All right, let me construct my sentence. I like to build it before I write it. Remember I'm telling the story from the point of view of the character. I went to the, where did she go? Garden. Which word says garden? Garden starts with a G. Here we go. I went to the garden. That's what I'm going to write. Now, that is not a complete sentence yet because I don't have all of the parts. So let me get my marker and get ready to record my sentence for today. Okay, so here is my sentence that I wrote yesterday. I went to the barn. Now I'm going to add my sentence today. I went to the garden, and I'm going to write it right here on the same paper. I use the same page all week long. Okay, there we go. I've written my sentence using the word cards that I have up there. I wrote, I went to the garden. Now I'm going to get ready to code it. My subject, again, I'm saying I. That's the naming part. So I is the subject, and I want to separate it from the predicate so we can see both of those parts. The predicate, or the telling part, is went to the garden. So the two parts, it's either in the subject or it's in the predicate, but everything will get underlined. I'm going to start with the subject with the color red. I, subject, I. The predicate, or the telling part, is went to the garden. I'll underline that green. Now I'm going to make sure I have a capital letter at the beginning and a period at the end. So I'm going to get my blue crayon or marker and highlight my capital, make sure that's a capital, and then make sure I have punctuation at the end. And I do. So there we have it, my second complete sentence. Now, boys and girls, I did forget to tell you this yesterday, so I'm going to add it on today. But I want you to draw a picture of what your sentence tells each day. So you're going to back up and draw your first picture. I went to the barn. So you're going to draw that. You can draw it on the next page or the back of your page, or if you have a paper with blank on the top and writing on the bottom, you can do the picture on the top, but you're only drawing what's in each sentence for that day. So for our sentence yesterday, I went to the barn, you can draw a picture of you at the barn or the character at the barn. Then today it says I went to the garden. So now we're going to add on a garden. There has to be a garden in our picture. Okay, friends, for Unit 2, Day 3 writing, we will address Standard 1.11a, develop drafts in oral, pictorial, or written form by telling, drawing, or writing ideas with details focused on the topic and purpose. Our target for today is I can develop drafts in written form by writing my story with details focused on the topic and purpose. Remember, we are writing personal narratives, and you chose the topic of your personal narrative, and I chose the topic of my personal narrative. My personal narrative is a story about when I was excited to go to the beach. Remember, a personal narrative is about you, and we use the words I, me, my, and mine. to tell the beginning, middle, and end of our story, and we must include those sensory details and as well as our internal feelings. Okay, friends, now I'm ready to use my sketch to start writing the beginning of my story. I'm going to look back up at my sketch to make sure I include all the things that I talked about for the beginning of my story. All right, let me get my paper ready. Okay, as I looked at my sketch, I remember that the beginning of my story is telling about when I arrived at the beach. I always start with an opening sentence to let everybody know what I'm writing about. I think my opening sentence will say, starting with a capital letter, this started with that capital letter, this summer. Let me make the sounds in summer. Boys and girls, when I get to a word, if I'm not sure how to write it, I'm going to do the best I can by making the sounds that I hear. I can always go back and check it when I'm making my sharing copy. I, capital I, because when I'm telling about myself, I call myself I, and that always gets a capital when it's telling about myself. Was so excited. Now that's a tricky one. Let me make the sounds. Excited. Yeah, that looks like excited. So this summer, I was so excited to spend the day at the beach. I'm going to put 2 E's. The beach. Then I don't want to forget my punctuation. Okay, now I'm ready to look at my beginning sketch. That one showed the picture of me playing in the water as soon as I got there. I'm going to start that sentence just like that. As soon as I got there, I ran splashing, ing, and that's like my name. It starts with ing, Ingalls, I-N-G, into the water. I remember that I told how I love to ride on the waves. I, capital I, loved to ride, on the, let me stretch out waves. And then my punctuation, I'm going to put the ending mark. Okay, there we go, friends. There is the beginning of my draft that I've recorded in written form, just like our target stated today. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll work on the middle and the ending.